Ex-girlfriend, unexpectedly pregnant, wants to give the baby up for adoption, but I question if it's the right decision and I'd if I can be a father. Oop is 23 his ex-girlfriend is 20. They met in college. He has graduated while she has 2 years left of schooling. The girlfriend is 21 weeks pregnant and would like to place the baby for adoption. Oop didn't know she was pregnant until she reached the 14 weeks mark. GF informed Oop she wanted space to make her decisions and chose not to tell him until after 3 months. Once Oop was informed of the pregnancy, he has the guilt on the fact he got his ex-GF pregnant. Said he would support her decisions on what she wants to do next. The thoughts of fatherhood and panic has kicked in a bit for Oop. When he was told of the possible adoption, Oop feels sick and wondering if it was the right thing to do for the ex to consider about. He doesn't think he could consent to the adoption idea, and it was getting uncomfortable for him for days. Oop wonders if he was in the right mind and position to be a single father if the ex-GF doesn't want to be part of the baby's life. Ending to the adoption. Has not been in the communication with his ex-GF after informing her he was against the adoption idea. Oop is in contact with the proper people as needed to make sure he has done the legal process of being a single father. He has gone through the putative father registry, legally in a number of states, which is the sole means for establishing the right of notice. Meaning if the ex-GF tries to give the baby up for adoption, Oop would be notified immediately. He acknowledges he would to establish paternity once the baby arrives and he is doing the legal route as needed. Ex-GF is still not speaking with Oop, but he will talk with a lawyer in order to deal with the communications when necessary regarding the custody of the baby. She is being stubborn per Oop because she still didn't want to be a mother and wanted Oop to sign over his rights to give the baby up right away. Oop is choosing to give ex-GF time and space to process the whole thing because she is not willing to do a prenatal paternity test to confirm Oop is indeed the father. Oop gives his thanks to the Redditors for comments on his prior posts. They have provided significant information for him to consider about and how to move forward with his decisions on being a single father. Noting that ex-GF is close to 23 weeks and the due date is far away, Oop mentions the ex-GF has been doing the interviews with adoptive families. Oop is already looking into what steps to take in order to support himself and his child once the baby is born. Working on budgeting and saving money and checking for childcare and other necessities. Oop posted on a different sub regarding being a single dad and asked for advice. He gave a recap on his prior posts. Ex-GF's pregnancy was unplanned, but Oop and she broke up before she told him at 14 weeks mark. She didn't know she was pregnant, still very young at 20 and in college. Oop, 23, already has graduated and started working remotely with a company for months now. After ex-GF told Oop about her pregnancy, she was all for adoptions, but he wasn't. Oop has tried to convince himself on the adoption being the best option, but could not. He decided to take the legal steps and go on to the single fatherhood path of his life. Working on creating plans for his future with his baby girl, such as childcare and other important necessities. Oop took care of the legal proceedings as needed, talking with a lawyer to cover his bases as a single parent. Ex-GF is mad at Oop for ruining her ideal adoption plans. Wanted him to consent so she could give the baby up. Oop is trying not to make things too hard for ex-GF, but he could not stick with the thoughts on adoptions. Oop has support from family and friends. First one in his friends group to have a child, they think he's crazy, but respecting his decisions. The baby girl arrived on New Year's Day. Oop wasn't informed of her birth until 5 days later. He is upset because he wanted to come to the hospital to provide support. Was disappointed that he didn't get to see his daughter at her birth. Recaps the details on having broken up with ex-GF before he was informed of her pregnancy. Both now live in different states during ex-GF's pregnancy. Oop reviews the details from his prior posts. He and ex-GF were not on the same page of placing the baby for adoption. He decided he would be the single father and raise his baby. Ex-GF still didn't want to be a parent, and has no plans to be involved in the baby's life. Oop has been working for the past few months to get ready for the fatherhood along with taking legal steps as needed. Ex-GF didn't want Oop to be in the delivery room and said she would let him know when it was time. Ex-GF sent Oop a picture of their daughter, which she wasn't due for another few weeks, but healthy and only had to spend an extra day at the hospital. The baby went home with ex-GF and her parents before Oop could bring her home with him. Oop informed ex-GF, if she changes her mind on being a mother, he is willing to move closer so he can help take care of the baby. Oop had to make changes to his plans after learning of his daughter's early arrival and the unexpected timing. Was going to have his mother coming along to pick up his daughter. Oop's sister would be accompanying him to see the baby. He is relieved to know that he has done the legal processes and can speak with his lawyer if there are changes to be made regarding the custody of his daughter between himself and the ex-GF. Update 3. Oop has a new update. He has been home with his daughter for a few days already and getting settled. After his daughter's early birth, he and his sister traveled to meet the baby. Ex-GF's family is having the hard time with the details on Oop having the solo custody instead of placing the baby for adoption. Oop shares the fact which ex-GF still didn't want to be involved in the baby's life. He lets his ex know that if she changes her mind, he is willing to work out a plan regarding their daughter. Since Oop wasn't able to be at the hospital within 3 days of his daughter's birth, he had to take care of legal documents to record the baby's last name and deal with a paternity affidavit. Ex-GF signed everything and has given a first and middle name to the baby. Oop had no problems with that. Regarding custody, Oop explains about the paternity affidavit which allows him and ex-GF to agree joint legal custody. He had to submit a paternity test to the court which was a part of the affidavit. Ex-GF confirms she wants Oop to have full legal and physical custody of the baby, but the form allows them to establish joint legal custody due to the laws in the state where ex-GF lives in. Since the baby is here, Oop has taken the proper steps with the help from his lawyer to do the appropriate paperwork for the court to amend the changes made. Oop will have physical custody because he is now the primary caregiver. Ex-GF has acknowledged the necessary process of taking care of the legal documents for the court to recognize Oop as the father and caregiver in his current state. Oop provides a cute update on his daughter. Getting adjusted to the reality on the baby being his and he being a father now. She has her father's eyes. Shared the common things of the baby's loves and hates at her current age. Update 4. I officially have sole legal and physical custody of my daughter. Took a while for all of the paperwork to be filed and approved, but everything has been finalized and it's such a relief. Even though her mother was cooperative, I was constantly worried she'd suddenly change her mind, or her family would convince her to change her mind, since I believe they have a strong influence over her, and accuse me of taking off with our kid. I've posted in a few groups over the course of all this, but to sum it all up, my ex-GF, 21, and I, 24, had an unplanned baby. She didn't tell me she was pregnant until after we broke up and I had moved to a different state. She wanted to place the baby for adoption but I decided I couldn't do that. I'm currently parenting my daughter on my own. She still has legal parental rights but is not involved in any way. My daughter is almost 13 weeks old. I think I was meant to be a parent and for some reason the universe deemed it to happen now instead of when I always thought it'd happen later in life. I still have no clue what I'm doing most of the time, but I'm happy and I love my daughter so much. I think we've both come a long way in the past 3 months. I had to go back to work earlier this month. Unfortunately, I'm still in the wait list for a few daycares that are going to be the best options for me cost-wise and location-wise. The only one that had an opening for her age was out of the way as far as my workplace goes and was at the very top of the budget. Let's be real, daycare in general is nearly out of my budget but I'm going to make it work. My workplace is letting me work from home a few days a week as I transition back to work. They all know the situation and have been very accommodating. On the days I go into the office my grandma is watching her for now. I admit, I actually felt really depressed when I had to go back to work. As much as I was looking forward to the adult interaction again, I was sad. I might have actually cried once. I hadn't heard from her mother since I brought my daughter home for the first time. I did have to reach out to her a few times regarding the status of some paperwork that we filed but I did not mention the baby, send unsolicited photos, etc. I know she said she doesn't want to be a mom, but I guess I found it weird that she never even asked about her once. Now she's reached out. I'm assuming that the custody stuff may have played a part. I don't really know. She asked if I could send her some pictures, and I did. Then she asked what if I want to see her in person? Well, okay. But I told her she'll have to come here. I don't have any PTO time and I don't think it makes sense for me to have to travel states away with a baby for her to see her. She said she doesn't know when she'll have the money and time to do that. I told her I don't know what to tell her then. It seemed like she either wanted me to go to her or for me to pay for it. I can't do either of those things. How do I still feel bad for her for some reason? Update 5. I've posted several times, but it's been a while. I don't have much time to post or respond to the messages I receive here anymore, but I'm on vacation this week, my daughter's first trip to the beach, and I have some free time. Honestly, I guess I'm feeling really good and just a little bit petty and wanted to share an update as a response to everyone who said I wouldn't be able to handle it or that I'd be begging/forcing my child's mother to be involved. I don't expect anyone reading this to remember anything about my story. Long story short, my ex-GF from college got pregnant and planned to place our baby for adoption. I really did try to accept it and go along with it, but I couldn't wrap my head around having a child out there. I've been raising her as a single parent without any real involvement from my ex. I accepted that this would be the case and I respect her choice. I have a very supportive family, so I have help in that way for sure, but nobody is raising my daughter for me. My daughter will be 6 months on July 1st. She's doing really well for the most part. She's been diagnosed with Sandifer syndrome, which is something most people, including myself, have never even heard of. She has uncontrollable muscle spasms after eating due to acid reflux, which her originally pediatrician brushed off and made me feel like I was just worrying too much or overreacting to hear colic and severe projectile vomiting after meals. Luckily, this isn't a life-threatening illness or something that should affect her for the rest of her life. It should clear up by the time she's 1 to 1.5 years old, if not sooner. She's already doing better with some diet changes and some other changes on my part as far as feeding positions, frequency of feeding, etc. She's doing so well now that the doctor is holding off on putting her on medication and thinks she probably won't need it. She developed a secondary condition called torticollis, which is essentially short right neck muscles that cause her head to turn to side, so she's going to weekly physical therapy for that and thankfully it's something that can be resolved and isn't a lifelong condition or anything like that. I feel bad, even though I've been told repeatedly that none of this was caused by anything I did. Rationally, I know that, but I'm finding that a lot of feelings you have as a parent aren't always rational. She goes to daycare now, just started a few weeks ago. Prior to that, my grandma was watching her during the day, so I was really lucky to have that help. I'm still learning to be comfortable with dropping her off at daycare. Before she was born, I thought daycare, no big deal. It's hard to trust total strangers with your kid who can't at least talk to tell you what's happening all day. Not to mention the cost, but having my grandma watch her for the first few months allowed me to save up a very tiny bit. I've paid off credit cards and have vowed not to use them again, so I have that credit in reserve should I ever have any big emergency. I'm definitely budgeting. My sister is into couponing and sales and knows how to get all the deals, so her help has been invaluable to me financially. My daughter's mom isn't directly involved at all. I don't resent her and I haven't tried to force her to be involved or even asked her to do anything. She contacted me a few months ago and wanted to come here to visit our daughter. We live states apart now. Around the time I started occasionally sharing pictures with her. We don't really talk about how she feels or is handling any of it. Sometimes I'm curious about how she feels, but really it's none of my business. She went back to school and is focusing on that now. She never came to visit, she wanted me to pay for it, and I told her no, it wasn't even totally a matter of not wanting to, but I don't have the money for that. She sent me a really nice, long text on Father's Day. We don't talk unless it's to give her a little update when she asks. I guess feel kind of mixed about sharing the updates and photos, but I'm trying not to be an asshole about it.